The Devourers arrived at the human colony of New Hope on schedule. Their ships, if they could be called ships, were organic things that pulsed with dark energy. They moved through space like a school of predatory fish, thousands upon thousands of them, blotting out the stars. The colony had 3 million inhabitants. Most were farmers and miners, people who had come to the frontier seeking a new life. They had known for 2 weeks that this day was coming. The Galactic Council had offered them no escape, no rescue, no hope at all. So they had prepared in the only way they knew how. As the Devourer swarm descended toward the planet, they encountered the first surprise. The orbital stations, normally used for traffic control and communications, opened fire with newly installed weapons. Kinetic cannons hurled tungsten rods at relativistic speeds. Missile batteries launched their payloads. The defense was desperate and doomed, but it was fierce. The Devourers, expecting no resistance at all, lost 17 ships in the first salvo. On the planet's surface, civilians huddled in reinforced bunkers, while hastily trained militia units took up positions. Every person capable of holding a weapon had been armed. Farmers stood alongside former soldiers. Teachers loaded ammunition belts. Children too young to fight helped carry supplies and tend to the wounded. The Devourers landed like a plague of locusts. Their ground forces were nightmare creatures, all teeth and claws and endless hunger. They swarmed across the landscape, consuming everything in their path. And the humans fought back with a savagery that shocked even themselves. They used guerrilla tactics, hitting the Devourers from unexpected angles and melting back into the defensive networks. They booby-trapped buildings and collapsed tunnels on advancing enemy forces. They fought for every meter of ground, making the Devourers pay in blood for every step forward. In orbit, the defense stations fell one by one, their crews fighting until the very end. The last station, Watchtower 7, was commanded by Captain Maria Santos. When her weapons ran dry and her shields failed, she aimed her station at the largest Devourer ship she could see and fired her emergency thrusters. "For humanity," she said, and the station struck like a meteor. New Hope fell after 4 days. The Devourers consumed the colony completely, leaving nothing behind but barren rock. But it had cost them. Instead of the easy victory they expected, they had lost over 300 ships and countless ground forces. The hive mind that controlled them registered something it had never felt before: surprise. The pattern repeated across the human colonies. At New Hebrides, the defenders flooded mine shafts with explosive gas and detonated them as Devourer forces advanced underground. At Port Darwin, civilians in jury-rigged exoskeletons charged enemy positions with mining explosives strapped to their chests. At Columbia Station, the governor broadcast music over all frequencies as his world burned. Old Earth songs about freedom and defiance. Each colony fell, but slowly, expensively, buying time with blood. At the Galactic Council headquarters, the observers watched in stunned silence. Their predictions had given the human colonies 3 days each, maybe 4. Instead, the humans were lasting a week or more. Their defensive tactics were creative and ruthless. They fought with a desperation that bordered on madness. "They are using civilian populations as military assets," said Counselor Then, his voice disapproving. "They arm children and non-combatants." "They have no choice," Vexthar replied coldly. "You gave them no choice." By the end of the second week, 4 human colonies had fallen. The Devourers were advancing, but slower than anticipated. And then the Council's long-range sensors detected something unexpected. Energy signatures from the human home system, the AI overseer reported. Multiple large-scale fusion drives. They are forming up in a fleet configuration. The holographic display updated, showing hundreds of ships gathering in Earth's orbit. More were arriving from Mars, from the asteroid belt, from every human installation in their home system. They were not evacuation transports. They were warships. "They are mobilizing," someone whispered. Counselor Then examined the data. Their entire military fleet by the looks of it. Perhaps 800 ships total. Impressive for such a young species, but ultimately futile. The Devourer swarm numbers in the hundreds of thousands. "What are they armed with?" asked another counselor. "Kinetic weapons primarily, missile systems, nuclear warheads, some directed energy weapons, but nothing sophisticated. Their technology is centuries behind Council standard." The AI overseer paused. "They are moving out. Calculating trajectory. They are heading toward the front lines." The council chamber erupted in confused chatter. It made no sense. The humans had to know they were outmatched. The logical move was to fortify their core worlds, to make the Devourers fight for Earth itself. Instead, they were taking the battle to the enemy. "Suicide," said Counselor Then. "Noble, perhaps, but pointless. They will be destroyed within hours." Vexithar studied the fleet composition carefully. The human ships were organized into battle groups, each centered around a large carrier or dreadnought. The formations were tight, disciplined. Their vectors were aggressive, burning hard toward the colonies still under attack. "They are not running," she said quietly. "They are attacking." "Then they are fools," Then replied. "All they will accomplish is dying faster." The human battle fleet crossed through Council space, ignoring all attempts at communication. Admiral Chen Wei stood on the bridge of the carrier Defiant Legacy, watching the stars streak past. Behind her ship, 800 vessels followed in precise formation. Cruisers, destroyers, frigates, support craft, everything humanity could throw into space on short notice. It was not enough. She knew that. They all knew that. But sometimes the point was not winning. Sometimes the point was refusing to lose without a fight. "Admiral," said Commander Park, "we are receiving transmissions from the colony at New Sarajevo. They are under attack. Devourer forces have breached the orbital defenses." "How long can they hold?" Chen Wei asked. "Estimates suggest 6 hours. Maybe 8. Chen Wei did the math in her head. The fleet could reach New Sarajevo in 5 hours if they maintained maximum burn. It would be close. "All ships, increase to maximum acceleration. We will not let New Sarajevo fall." "Admiral, the strain on the engines will be worth it if we save 3 million people," Chen Wei interrupted. "Give the order." The fleet accelerated, pushing their fusion drives beyond recommended limits. In the engine rooms, crews worked frantically to keep the systems from overloading. On the gun decks, weapons officers prepared their systems for combat. In the medical bays, doctors and nurses readied themselves for casualties. They were 800 ships carrying 200,000 souls, and they were flying straight into hell. At the Galactic Council, Vexthar watched the human fleet's approach vector and made a decision that would define the rest of her life. She opened a secure channel to her own fleet, the most powerful military force in the galaxy. "Prepare for immediate deployment," she told her commanders. "We are going to the human front." "Admiral, the Council has not authorized—" "I do not care," Vexthar said. "We abandoned these people to die. I will not compound that crime by watching them die alone. Any ship that wishes to remain behind may do so. The rest of you, follow me." She closed the channel and set course for New Sarajevo. In the depths of space, the Devourer hive mind processed new data. The prey was not fleeing. The prey was attacking. This was unexpected. This was interesting. The swarm began to gather its forces, preparing to crush the humans once and for all. They would teach this young species the futility of resistance. They would show them that in the face of absolute power, courage was meaningless. The Devourers had consumed 3 star systems and 14 billion lives. They had faced down Council fleets and won. They were unstoppable. But they had never fought humans before. The human battle fleet arrived at New Sarajevo in 4 hours and 53 minutes. Admiral Chen Wei stood on the bridge of the Defiant Legacy, and watched the tactical display with cold eyes. The colony was dying. Devourer bioships swarmed around the planet like flies on a corpse, and the orbital defenses were down to their last few weapons platforms. "All ships, battle formation," Chen Wei ordered. "We hit them hard and fast. No cautious approach. No probing attacks. We go straight through the center." Commander Park looked at her in alarm. "Admiral, standard doctrine calls for establishing a defensive perimeter and standard doctrine is for fighting enemies that think like we do," Chen Wei interrupted. "The Devourers are a hive mind. They expect prey to run or to defend. They do not expect prey to attack. So that is exactly what we will do." The fleet formed up into a spear formation, heavy dreadnoughts at the tip, carriers and support ships protected in the middle, fast destroyers on the flanks. They burned toward the Devourer swarm at maximum speed. The Devourers detected the incoming fleet and shifted their formation to meet the threat. Thousands of bioships broke away from their assault on the planet and moved to intercept. They outnumbered the human fleet 20-1. On the Council observation station, the representatives watched in horror. "They are going to die," someone whispered. "At least they will die fighting," said another. Vexthar, whose own fleet was still hours away, could only watch and hope. The two forces met in a fury of fire and violence. The first salvo from the human fleet was devastating. Kinetic cannons, loaded with depleted uranium rounds, punched through Devourer bioarmor like paper. Missile swarms overwhelmed their defensive systems. Nuclear warheads detonated in brilliant flashes, vaporizing dozens of enemy ships at a time. But the Devourers had numbers. For every bioship destroyed, 3 more took its place. They swarmed over the human ships, their organic weapons eating through shields and armor. The destroyer Valiant disappeared in a burst of green fire. The cruiser Stalingrad broke in half, its crew dying in seconds. Chen Wei watched her ships die and felt each loss like a knife to the heart. But she had known this would be the cost. "All carriers, launch fighters. Gunnery, concentrate fire on their command ships. Engineering, I need more power to the forward shields." The human fighter craft, small and fast, swarmed out of their carriers like angry bees. They darted between the massive Devourer bioships, targeting weak points and weapon clusters. The Devourer hive mind, used to fighting large capital ships, struggled to track the small craft. Dozens of bioships went dark as human fighters crippled their control systems. The battle became chaos. Ships exploded in silent fury. Debris fields spread across the battlefield. The void filled with the bodies of the dead from both sides, but slowly, impossibly, the human fleet began to push forward. "They are adapting," Commander Park said, watching the tactical display. "The Devourers are changing their formations." "Then we change ours," Chen Wei replied. She switched to fleet-wide communications. "All ships, break formation, switch to Wolfpack tactics, groups of 3, target their isolated ships." The tight spear formation broke apart into dozens of smaller units. Each 3-ship group operated independently, hunting through the Devourer swarm like sharks. The hive mind tried to respond, but the humans were too unpredictable. They used tactics that made no logical sense, taking risks that should have gotten them killed, but somehow worked. The dreadnought Indomitable found itself surrounded by Devourer ships. Its shields were failing, its armor was breached in a dozen places. The captain, an old veteran named Marcus Stone, looked at his dying ship and made a decision. "Engineering, divert all power from life support to engines. Navigation, plot a collision course with that big one." He pointed at a Devourer flagship, a massive bioship that seemed to be coordinating the enemy formations. "Sir, we will not survive the impact," his executive officer said. "I know," Stone replied calmly. He opened a channel to the rest of the fleet. "Admiral, this is Indomitable. We are making our final run. It has been an honor serving with you all." Chen Wei's voice came back, tight with emotion. Godspeed, Indomitable. The dreadnought accelerated, burning the last of its fuel in one final charge. Devourer bioships tried to intercept, but the human vessel was moving too fast. It struck the enemy flagship head-on, and for a moment the nuclear reactors held. Then they overloaded, and the explosion lit up the battlefield like a newborn star. When the light faded, both ships were gone. But so was a significant portion of the Devourer swarm's coordination. The bioships began operating more independently, less efficiently. "They are confused," Park said. "The hive mind is disrupted." "Then we press the advantage," Chen Wei ordered. "All ships, focus fire on the largest concentrations. Hit them while they are disorganized." The human fleet, battered and bleeding, poured everything they had into the attack. More ships died. The carrier Defiant Legacy herself took a devastating hit that killed half her crew, but the humans fought with a ferocity that transcended logic or reason. They fought because giving up was not in their nature. On the planet below, the defenders watched the battle in orbit through whatever sensors still worked. They saw their fleet, outnumbered and outgunned, refusing to break. They saw human ships dying by the dozens, and they saw those ships taking the enemy with them. "They came back for us," someone said, voice thick with emotion. "They actually came back." The ground forces, inspired by the fleet's arrival, launched their own counterattack. Devourer ground forces, already confused by the chaos in orbit, found themselves under renewed assault from an enemy that should have been broken and defeated. The battle raged for 6 hours. When it finally ended, the Devourer swarm retreated, pulling back to regroup. They had never retreated before. They left behind thousands of destroyed bioships and hundreds of human wrecks. Admiral Chen Wei stood on the damaged bridge of her carrier and surveyed the cost. Of the 800 ships that had arrived at New Sarajevo, only 412 remained operational. 70,000 people were dead. Entire crews had been vaporized. Ships that had served humanity for decades were now nothing but debris. But New Sarajevo still stood. 3 million people were alive who should have been dead. And the Devourer swarm, for the first time in its existence, had been stopped. "Get me a status report on all ships," Chen Wei ordered. "I want damage assessments and crew counts within the hour, and someone contact the colony. Tell them we are sorry we could not arrive sooner." "Admiral," said Commander Park quietly, "we just received a transmission. The Galactic Council has been watching the battle." "I am sure they have," Chen Wei said bitterly. "Did they enjoy the show?" "They want to speak with you. And, Admiral, there is something else. Long-range sensors are detecting ships entering the system. A lot of ships." Chen Wei felt a cold dread settle in her stomach. If the Devourers were bringing reinforcements already, the fleet could not survive another battle. "Identification?" Park looked at his display, then back at her with wide eyes. "They are broadcasting Vrin Imperium codes. Admiral, it is a council fleet. They are here to help." For a long moment, Chen Wei could not speak. She looked at the tactical display, at the 400 broken ships that were all that remained of humanity's grand fleet. She thought about the 70,000 dead, about the sacrifice of the Indomitable, about the impossible victory they had just won. And now, after everything, the council was coming to help. "Open a channel," she said finally. "Let us see what they have to say." Admiral Vexithar's face appeared on the screen. The alien commander looked uncomfortable, her expression hard to read. "Admiral Chen Wei, I apologize for our delay in arriving. We came as quickly as we could." "You came," Chen Wei said. "That is more than I expected." "I watched your battle," Vexithar said. "I watched your ships die. I watched your people fight with a courage that shames every member of the council. We were wrong to abandon you. I was wrong. I cannot undo that decision, but I can ensure we do not repeat it." Chen Wei studied the alien admiral for a long moment. "Why should I believe you?" Because my fleet is here, against council orders, Vexthar replied. Because I am risking my career and my life to fight beside you. Because what I witnessed today convinced me that humanity deserves allies, not abandonment. In the background of Vexthar's transmission, Chen Wei could see other ships arriving. Not just Vryn vessels, but ships from a dozen different council species. Frigates and cruisers and support craft, all flying toward New Sarajevo. They are volunteers, Vexthar explained. Crews who chose to follow me. We are not an official council force. We are simply people who refuse to let humanity stand alone any longer. Chen Wei felt something crack inside her chest, some hard shell of anger and pain that she had been carrying since the council's abandonment. She nodded slowly. Then you are welcome here, Admiral Vexthar. We have a war to fight, and we can use all the help we can get. The Devourer swarm regrouped in deep space, analyzing what had happened at New Sarajevo. The hive mind processed the data with cold efficiency. The prey had fought back more effectively than predicted. Adjustments were needed. The swarm began to adapt. Their bioships grew thicker armor. Their weapons evolved to track smaller, faster targets. Their formations tightened, compensating for the coordination problems the humans had exploited. When they attacked again, 3 days later at the colony of Redemption, they were ready for human tactics. The battle was brutal. The combined human and Vryn fleet fought desperately, but the Devourers had learned. They swarmed the human destroyers before they could scatter. They targeted carriers to prevent fighter launches. They adapted to every tactic the humans tried, countering moves almost as fast as the humans made them. They are learning from us, Commander Park said, watching another destroyer explode on the tactical display. Then we learn faster, Admiral Chen Wei replied. She studied the battlefield, looking for any advantage. The Devourers had adapted to their wolf-pack tactics, so they needed something new, something the hive mind would not expect. Order all ships to form a defensive sphere around the planet, she commanded. Titan formation, make them come to us. It went against every aggressive instinct. But sometimes defense was the right attack. The fleet pulled back, forming a protective shell around Redemption. The Devourers, sensing weakness, pressed forward eagerly and walked straight into a trap. The defensive formation was actually a killing field. Overlapping fire from multiple ships created zones where the Devourers could not survive. Mines, hastily deployed, floated in preset patterns that funneled the enemy into those kill zones. When the Devourers tried to pull back, human fighters harassed their retreat. Redemption held. Barely. The cost was high, but not as high as it could have been. Admiral Vexthar watched the human tactics with growing respect. They fought like no species she had ever encountered. Every battle was different. They tried new approaches constantly, never settling into predictable patterns. When something worked, they used it. When something failed, they tried something else immediately. They think like predators, she told her second-in-command. Most species, when they reach space, have evolved past the need for such thinking. We rely on technology and strategy. But humans, they still have that predator's instinct. That is their advantage. More council ships began arriving, not officially, but as volunteers and rogue elements that ignored their orders and came to the front anyway. They brought supplies, weapons, and fresh crews. They also brought something else, a willingness to learn. The human way of war was spreading. A Kresh cruiser captain, watching human destroyers use an asteroid field for cover, tried the same tactic and succeeded. A Prill fighter squadron, copying human aggression, overwhelmed a Devourer bioship through sheer audacity. Species that had fought wars according to careful doctrine and established rules found themselves improvising, adapting, trying crazy ideas that somehow worked. The front line became a melting pot of tactics and cultures, all learning from each other, all focused on survival. But the devourers kept coming. For every victory, there was a defeat. For every planet saved, another fell. The combined fleet was running out of ships, running out of ammunition, running out of time. In the Galactic Council headquarters, the debate raged on. We must send official support, some argued. The humans and their volunteers are buying us time. We owe them aid. We owe them nothing, others countered. They chose to fight. Let them fight. Our resources must protect the core worlds. Counselor Then watched the reports from the front and felt something he had not experienced in his long career: shame. He had voted to abandon humanity. He had called it pragmatic, logical, necessary, and now those abandoned humans were fighting harder than any council fleet had ever fought. They were dying by the thousands, and they never stopped coming. Perhaps, he said quietly during one meeting, we made a mistake. The chamber fell silent. Then was known for never admitting error. The humans were supposed to fall in days, he continued. They have been fighting for 5 weeks. They were supposed to be easy prey. They have killed more devourers than any 3 council fleets combined. We judged them weak because their technology was primitive. We forgot that weapons do not win wars. Warriors do. He stood, his 4 eyes solemn. I propose we send official military aid to the human front, not as a favor, as an apology. The vote was close, but it passed. 3 council battle groups, real military forces with the best ships and weapons the galaxy could provide, were dispatched to join the volunteers. When Admiral Chen Wei received the news, she did not celebrate. She was too tired for celebration, too aware of how much more they still had to do. How many ships? She asked. 300 council vessels, all military grade. They will arrive in 4 days. 4 days. They had to hold for 4 more days. Chen Wei looked at her tactical display. The devourers were massing again, preparing for another assault. Intelligence suggested this would be their largest attack yet. The swarm was gathering everything it had for one overwhelming push. We need to address the fleet, Commander Park said. Morale is failing. We have been fighting for over a month. People are exhausted. Chen Wei knew he was right. She had seen it in the faces of her crew, in the slower responses, the mistakes that came from fatigue. They needed something to keep fighting for, some reason to hold on for 4 more days. She opened a channel to all ships, human and alien alike. I know you are tired, she said. I know we have lost friends, comrades, people we loved. I know the odds still seem impossible. But I need you to understand something. Every day we fight, every ship we destroy, every planet we save, we are teaching the galaxy a lesson it desperately needs to learn. She paused, choosing her words carefully. The Galactic Council thought the secret to survival was caution. Play it safe. Follow the rules. Protect what you have. And when the devourers came, that philosophy failed. It failed because sometimes the universe does not care about your careful plans. Sometimes it throws something at you that cannot be reasoned with or avoided. And in those moments, the only thing that matters is will. The will to keep fighting when logic says you should quit. The will to stand when everyone says you should run. On ships throughout the fleet, crews listened in silence. The council abandoned us because they thought we were expendable, Chen Wei continued. They thought our primitive technology and short history made us weak. They were wrong. Technology is just tools. History is just stories. What matters is what you do right now, in this moment, when everything is on the line. She felt her voice growing stronger, more passionate. We have shown the galaxy that humans do not surrender. Now we need to show them that we do not stand alone. Every alien crew that volunteered to fight beside us, every council ship that defied orders to come to our aid, you are all proof that courage is contagious, that when one species stands against the darkness, Others will stand with them. So yes, we are tired. Yes, we have lost too much. But we hold for 4 more days. Not because it is easy, not because we are sure we will win, but because that is what we do. We hold the line. We protect the people behind us. We show the universe that some things are worth dying for. She took a breath. And maybe, just maybe, we show that we are also worth living for. Chen Wei out. The channel closed. For a moment, there was silence across the fleet. Then, from the human ships, a sound began to rise. It started as a low rumble, then grew louder. The crews were cheering, shouting, banging on bulkheads and stomping their feet. The alien crews, confused at first, began to join in. Different species, different cultures, but all making noise, all showing defiance in their own way. Admiral Vexthar, listening from her flagship, felt something stir in her chest. It was a feeling she had not experienced in years. Hope. "What do humans call that speech?" her second-in-command asked. Vexthar smiled. "I believe they call it a pep talk, and it appears to be quite effective." The Devourers came the next day, and the day after that, and the day after that. Each attack was more ferocious than the last. Each battle cost more lives. Ships that had survived a dozen engagements finally fell. Crews that had fought for weeks died exhausted at their posts. But the line held, barely, desperately, at terrible cost. But it held, and on the 4th day, the Council battle groups arrived. 300 fresh ships, fully armed, fully supplied, crewed by the best warriors the galaxy had to offer. They took one look at the battered, bleeding fleet that had been holding the line and immediately moved to support them. Admiral Chen Wei watched them arrive and allowed herself one moment of relief. Then she got back to work. "All ships," she broadcast, "prepare for offensive operations. We have been on defense for too long. Time to show the Devourers what happens when you make humanity angry." The final battle began at a human colony called Thermopylae Station. The name was chosen deliberately, with the dark humor that humans favored even in their darkest hours. 300 Spartans had held a pass against an empire. Now 800 ships, human and alien together, would hold space against the Devourers. The enemy committed everything to this attack. Every bioship, every reserve force, every resource the swarm had gathered during its campaign. The Devourer hive mind had calculated that one overwhelming assault would break the resistance. After that, the path to the core worlds would be open. Long-range sensors showed the approaching swarm, and Admiral Chen Wei felt her blood run cold. There were so many of them. Hundreds of thousands of bioships, maybe more, all moving together in a formation that blotted out the stars. It was the largest concentration of enemy forces anyone had ever seen. "Admiral," Commander Park said quietly, "even with the Council reinforcements, we are outnumbered 200 to 1. "I know," Chen Wei replied. She studied the tactical display, looking for any advantage, any weakness to exploit. The numbers were impossible. The odds were worse than impossible. And yet, they had come this far. They had fought this long. They would not surrender now. She opened a channel to the entire fleet. "All ships, this is Admiral Chen Wei. You can all see what is coming. You all know the odds. I will not lie to you or give you false hope. This is going to be the hardest fight we have ever faced. Many of us will not survive." She paused, letting that sink in. "But here is what I want you to remember. 6 weeks ago, the galaxy wrote us off as already dead. They said humans would fall without a fight. We proved them wrong. We showed them that humanity does not know how to quit. And now every species in this fleet has learned that lesson. We stand together. We fight together. And if necessary, we die together. The Devourers think we are prey. Let us show them what happens when prey grows teeth. All ships, prepare for battle. And remember, We are not just fighting for Thermopylae Station. We are fighting for every world behind us, every person who depends on us to hold the line. So let us give them something to depend on. The fleet formed up in concentric defensive rings around Thermopylae Station, human carriers in the center, protected by walls of cruisers and destroyers, council battleships on the outer ring, their superior weapons ready to meet the enemy first. Fighter craft swarmed in the spaces between, ready to intercept any breakthrough. The Devourers came like a tidal wave of death. The first contact was devastating. The outer defensive ring disappeared in minutes, overwhelmed by sheer numbers. Council battleships that had survived a dozen wars died in seconds. But they took the enemy with them, and their sacrifice bought time for the inner rings to prepare. All fighters, launch, Chen Wei ordered. Target their command ships. Everything else is secondary. Thousands of small craft poured out of the carriers. Human pilots flew alongside Vryn aces and Kresh veterans, all of them diving into the swarm with reckless courage. They had learned during the long weeks of fighting that the Devourers had coordination nodes, large bioships that directed sections of the swarm. Kill those nodes, and the surrounding forces became confused and disorganized. But there were so many Devourers, and finding the nodes was like searching for specific drops of water in an ocean. Admiral Vexthar, commanding the Council contingent from her flagship Eternal Wrath, watched the tactical display with growing desperation. "We cannot hold," she told her bridge crew. "There are too many." But even as she said it, she saw something remarkable. The human ships, battered and damaged, were still fighting with the same ferocity they had shown at the beginning. A destroyer with half its hull blown away rammed into a cluster of Devourer ships. A cruiser whose weapons were offline used its engines to burn through enemy formations. A carrier, burning from a dozen wounds, continued launching fighters even as its own hull began to break apart. "They are still fighting," her second-in-command said in awe. "How are they still fighting?" "Because they are human," Vexthar replied. She made a decision then, one that felt right in her core. "All ships advance. We follow the humans' example. If this is our last battle, let it be one the galaxy remembers." The Council ships, inspired by human determination, pushed forward instead of falling back. They adopted human tactics, taking risks that their training said were foolish, but that somehow worked in the chaos of battle. On the carrier Defiant Legacy, Admiral Chen Wei coordinated the defense even as her ship took hit after hit. The bridge was damaged, half her command staff was dead, and fires burned in 6 different sections. But she remained at her post, directing ships, encouraging crews, finding the small advantages that kept the fleet alive moment by moment. "Admiral," Commander Park shouted over the sound of alarms, "I have found something. The sensor data shows a pattern. There is a central coordination node larger than the others. It is deep in the enemy formation, but if we could destroy it, the entire swarm might lose cohesion." Chen Wei looked at the tactical display. Park was right. There, in the heart of the Devourer fleet, was a massive bioship unlike any they had seen before. It was directing the entire battle, coordinating hundreds of thousands of enemy vessels. And it was protected by layers upon layers of defending forces. To reach it would require punching through the entire enemy formation. It would be suicide. "Send the coordinates to all ships," Chen Wei ordered. "Mark that target as priority Alpha." "Admiral, no ship could survive the run to that target." "Then we send all the ships," Chen Wei replied grimly. "One final push. Everything we have left." She opened the fleet channel one last time. "All vessels. This is Admiral Chen Wei. We have identified the enemy command node. Coordinates are being transmitted now. I am ordering a full fleet spearhead assault. We punch through their lines and destroy that node. I will not lie to you. Most of us will not survive this attack, but if we succeed, we save everyone behind us." She took a breath, feeling the weight of what she was asking. I know I am asking you to die. I know it is not fair. But fairness is a luxury we cannot afford. So I am asking you to do what humans do best. I am asking you to do the impossible. All ships, form up on the Defiant Legacy. We are going hunting. The fleet reformed into a massive spear, all remaining ships driving toward the center of the Devourer swarm. They burned their engines beyond safe limits. They fired every weapon until the barrels glowed red-hot. They rammed when they ran out of ammunition. Ships died by the dozens. The cruiser Indefatigable exploded, trying to clear a path. The destroyer Malcolm X disappeared under a wave of Devourer bioships. The Vryn battleship Eternal Wrath took a direct hit to its reactor and went critical, Admiral Vexthar still on the bridge. But before her ship exploded, Vexthar made one final transmission. Admiral Chen Wei, it has been an honor. Finish what we started. Then the Eternal Wrath rammed into the Devourer command node at full speed, and for a moment, a second sun bloomed in the darkness of space. Chen Wei watched Vexthar's sacrifice through tears she did not bother to hide. The alien admiral had become a friend, and now she was gone. So many were gone. But the sacrifice had worked. The path to the command node was clear, and the Defiant Legacy was still flying. All power to engines, Chen Wei ordered. Prepare for ramming speed. Admiral, there has to be another way, Commander Park said. There is not, Chen Wei replied. And even if there was, this is my responsibility. These people followed me. They trusted me. The least I can do is finish what I started. She looked at her remaining crew, these brave souls who had fought beside her through hell itself. Evacuate the ship. Get to the escape pods. That is an order. Admiral, we are not leaving you, Park said. Yes, you are, Chen Wei said firmly. Because someone needs to survive to tell this story. Someone needs to make sure the galaxy remembers what happened here. Now go. You have 3 minutes. Reluctantly, her crew began abandoning ship. Chen Wei watched them go, then turned back to her controls. The command node was ahead, a massive pulsing thing that coordinated the swarm's every move. She aimed the carrier straight at it. For humanity, she whispered. Then another ship appeared beside her, the human dreadnought Unconquerable, its hull scarred and blackened, pulled alongside the Defiant Legacy. Admiral Chen Wei, this is Captain Rodriguez of the Unconquerable. With respect, ma'am, you are not doing this alone. My ship is dead anyway. Might as well make it count. Before Chen Wei could respond, more ships moved into formation beside her. A Kresh cruiser, a Prill destroyer, a human frigate, vessels from a dozen different species, all damaged beyond repair, all choosing to make their last moments matter. Seems we all had the same idea, Rodriguez said. We punched through together. Chen Wei felt something break and heal inside her at the same time. They had started this war alone, abandoned by the galaxy. They were ending it surrounded by allies who chose to stand with them. Together, then, she agreed. On my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark. The ships accelerated as one, a final desperate charge into the heart of the enemy. The Devourers tried to stop them, throwing everything they had at the attacking vessels. The Kresh cruiser exploded. The Prill destroyer broke apart, but the momentum carried them forward. The Unconquerable struck first, its reactor detonating on impact, then the frigate, then the others, one by one, each explosion tearing into the command node structure, and finally, the Defiant Legacy hit home. Admiral Chen Wei had just enough time to see the command node beginning to break apart before everything went white. When the light faded, the Devourer swarm was in chaos. Without the central coordination, the bioships operated independently, confused and disorganized. The remaining human and council ships, battered but still flying, pressed the advantage ruthlessly. The battle continued for another 2 hours, but the outcome was no longer in doubt. The Devourers, defeated and broken, began to retreat. For the first time since entering the galaxy, they fled. The war was over. The cost had been catastrophic. 56% of the human fleet was destroyed. 14 colonies had been devastated. Over 300,000 military personnel were dead, and millions of civilians had perished in the fighting. But humanity survived, and so did the galaxy. The Galactic Council convened 1 week later. The chamber was full, every species represented. They had come to formally apologize to humanity and offer whatever aid was needed for reconstruction. The human representative was Commander Park, promoted to Admiral in the wake of the battle. He stood before the council in his dress uniform, his face showing the strain of the long weeks of war. "The Galactic Council wishes to express its deepest regret," Counselor Then said formally. "We abandoned you in your darkest hour. We were wrong to do so. We offer our sincere apologies and our complete support in rebuilding what was lost." Park looked at the assembled counselors for a long moment. "Your apology is noted," he said finally. "But words are cheap. Admiral Chen Wei used to say that actions matter more than intentions. So here is what humanity needs from you." He brought up a holographic display. "We need resources for rebuilding our colonies. We need medical support for our wounded. We need ships to replace the ones we lost. But most importantly, we need a promise that no species will ever be abandoned again, that when the next threat comes, because there will always be a next threat, the galaxy will stand together from the start." "You have our word," Then said solemnly. "The Council will enshrine it in law. No world will face extinction alone." Park nodded. "Then we accept your apology. But there is one more thing. Humanity will be taking over training responsibilities for all Council military academies. If the galaxy is going to survive the next crisis, it needs to learn what humanity knows. It needs to learn how to fight when the odds are impossible, how to stand when logic says to run, how to win when everyone says you are supposed to lose." There was some grumbling from the assembled representatives, but no one objected. They had all seen what human tactics could accomplish. They had all watched humans do the impossible. "We agree," Then said. "Humanity will have a seat on the Council, not as junior members but as equals. And yes, we will learn from you. Teach us how you do it. Teach us how to be as brave as you." Park almost smiled. "Bravery is not something you teach, Counselor. It is something you choose. But we can teach you the skills and tactics. The rest is up to you." The council session ended with formal agreements and treaties. But the real change happened in the days and weeks that followed. Human military instructors spread throughout the galaxy, teaching the lessons learned in blood and fire. They taught tactics, yes, but also mindset. They taught adaptability and creative thinking. They taught species that had forgotten what it meant to struggle how to overcome adversity. The galaxy learned, and it changed. Years later, a new threat emerged from beyond the galactic rim. But this time, the response was different. This time, the Council mobilized immediately. This time, they fought together from the start. And this time, they won without nearly as much cost, because they had learned the most important lesson humanity had to teach. Never surrender, never give up, and never face the darkness alone. In Earth's orbit, a massive memorial was built, listing the names of every person who had died in the war with the Devourers. At the top, in letters that could be seen from space, was a simple inscription. They said humanity would fall. Instead, we taught the galaxy how to stand. And beneath it, one more line. Admiral Chen Wei and the crew of the Defiant Legacy. They fell so that others could fly. Humanity had proven itself, not through superior technology or ancient wisdom, but through stubborn refusal to accept defeat. They had shown the galaxy that sometimes the most powerful weapon was not a gun or a ship. It was the simple declaration, not today, not ever, we will not fall. And the galaxy, watching humans teaching their children and training their soldiers and building their future, finally understood what made this young species so dangerous and so valuable. Humans had learned to fall and get back up so many times in their history that they had forgotten how to stay down, and now they were teaching everyone else the same lesson.